Look at your hand right now. The one you write with. The one that grabs your coffee without you thinking about it. The one that finds your phone in the dark. 9 times out of 10, that's your right hand. Every human society we've ever studied has this same split. Ancient Egypt, medieval Japan, the Amazon, the Arctic. Cave paintings from 30,000 years ago, about 90% right-handed, 10% left. The number barely moves, and it hasn't moved in a very long time. Most animals don't do this. Cats pick a paw about 50-50. Chimps lean maybe 60-40. This 90-10 split is close to a uniquely human thing. So why? Do most of us favor one hand? And why has that ratio survived unbroken through every human population that's ever existed? The honest answer is, we're not totally sure. Geneticists don't have it fully mapped. Neuroscientists argue about the mechanism. Archaeologists are still debating exactly what those million-year-old stone tools tell us. But we know enough to tell a real story, and it starts with your brain, not your hand. Is just the visible part, the puppet at the end of the string. Your brain is split into two halves, and the wiring crosses over. The left hemisphere controls the right side of your body. The right hemisphere controls the left. Nobody fully knows why the signals cross, but they have invertebrates for hundreds of millions of years. Here's the part that matters. In most people, language lives mainly in the left hemisphere. In areas like Broca's and Wernicke's, the machinery that turns a thought into a sentence. In about 95% of right-handed people, that machinery sits on the left. So the hemisphere running your mouth is also running your dominant hand. Speech and hand movement coming out of the same control room. Seems like a strange coincidence until you realize it probably isn't one. This kind of brain lateralization is old. Really old. It shows up in fish, frogs, birds, lizards. A chick pecking at grain tilts its head to use its right eye, sending the signal to its left hemisphere, which handles the fine motor sorting. Watching for a hawk, it uses its left eye instead. The brain has been dividing labor like this for roughly 500 million years. But most animals don't push that split all the way to a species-wide preference. Individual chimps favor a hand. The species as a whole doesn't. Humans are different, and most researchers think language is the reason. Producing speech takes incredibly precise, fast coordination of the tongue, lips, and larynx. You can't have both hemispheres arguing over who moves the tongue. You need one side in charge, and in most of us, that side is the left. The same circuitry running your mouth spilled over into running your hand. We can actually trace this in the archaeological record. Look at a stone tool struck a million years ago, and researchers can often tell which hand the toolmaker was using, based on the angle of the fracture and how the debris scattered. Tools from Olduvai Gorge and Atapuerca show right-hand dominance around 60 to 80%, climbing higher as we get closer to modern humans. Neanderthal teeth tell the same story. Neanderthals gripped hides with their front teeth while cutting with a stone blade in their dominant hand, and every slip left a tiny scratch in the enamel. Read those scratches and you get roughly the same ratio we have today. This preference predates our species. It goes back at least 500,000 years. Probably much further. Then there are the hand stencils in caves like Chauvet and Lascaux, where a Paleolithic person pressed a hand to the wall and blew pigment around it. About 3/4 of those stencils are left hands, meaning the artist held the pigment tube in their right hand. 25,000 years ago, same ratio, same story. So if right-handedness runs this deep, why hasn't evolution wiped out lefties? Why 10% instead of 0? For most of history, being left-handed was treated as a defect. The Latin word for left, sinister, means exactly that. The French gauche means both left and clumsy. Kids were beaten for using the wrong hand, corrected by parents and teachers for generations. And still, the 10% held. It never disappeared. One strong hypothesis involves fighting. If 90% of everyone you've ever sparred or fought against is right-handed, your instincts get calibrated to a right-handed opponent. Then someone left-handed shows up, and everything is mirrored. Their attacks come from the wrong angle. You hesitate, and in a fight, that hesitation costs you. This shows up in real data. Left-handed athletes are overrepresented at elite levels in fencing, boxing, and tennis, sometimes by a factor of 2 or 3. Not because they hit harder or move faster, because they're rare, and rarity itself is an advantage in a duel. This is called negative frequency dependent selection. Being unusual pays off as long as you stay unusual. Researchers studying more physically violent traditional societies, including groups in Papua New Guinea, have found left-handedness rates as high as 20 to 25%. In peaceful agricultural societies, it drops closer to 3 or 4%. Genes matter too, just not in a clean, simple way. 2 right-handed parents have roughly a 10% chance of a left-handed kid. One left-handed parent pushes that closer to 20%. Both parents left-handed, and it's around 25%. That's not the tidy pattern of a single gene. Handedness is polygenic, shaped by dozens of genetic regions, some of which also help decide the left-right layout of your organs during development. The same molecular process that determines which side your heart sits on may be quietly nudging which hand you reach for a coffee cup with. Identical twins share all their DNA, yet they only match on handedness about 76% of the time. Roughly a quarter of identical twin pairs include one lefty and one righty. Same genes, different hand. So genes aren't the whole story. Something in the womb, maybe hormone exposure, maybe the timing of brain development tips the outcome, and some researchers think part of it may just be biological noise. A coin flip built into how a fetus develops. Whatever the mechanism, part of who you are, the hand you'll use to sign your name and hold a baby gets decided months before you're born. By chemistry nobody chose. Once that tip happens, it sticks. Your brain wires around it early, and by age 3 or 4 you're locked in. Try writing with your other hand, and you can feel decades of neural grooves complaining. Zooming out, this kind of specialization, language on one side, spatial reasoning on the other, dominant hand running through one hemisphere, may be part of what let human cognition scale the way it did. Splitting the labor instead of duplicating it across both hemispheres is more efficient, and the visible result of that split, showing up on the outside, is which hand you write with. There's a cost too. Left-handers show slightly higher rates of certain autoimmune conditions, and a few learning differences, though the effects are small. On the other side, they're overrepresented in some creative fields, in math at the very top levels, and in certain sports that reward unusual spatial thinking. It's not a defect, and it's not a superpower. It's a different tuning of the same instrument. If you're left-handed, you belong to a line that's been quietly surviving for 500,000 years, kept around by something evolution seems to want to protect. If you're right-handed, your preference predates our species too. It shows up in Neanderthal teeth and in pigment blown around a hand on a cave wall. 25,000 years ago, the muscles in your fingers, the crossed wiring running from your palm to the opposite side of your brain. All of it is part of something that started before language, before farming, before Homo sapiens existed at all. You reach for your phone with the same hand your ancestors reached for a spear with. You sign your name with the hand a Neanderthal used to grip a hide. That's not a small thing, even though it's easy to miss, because using your hands is just something you do without thinking. It might be one of the oldest things about you, older than any language or culture you grew up in. So next time you pick up a pen or a fork or the hand of someone you love, notice which hand did it. That decision got made a long time ago, somewhere none of us can see, and you're just the latest one carrying it forward. If you liked this, 1. Hit like and subscribe if you haven't already. And tell me in the comments which hand you're using to scroll right now. I'm curious what the ratio looks like in this audience. And if there's another everyday piece of being human you want me to dig into, something that turns out to be older and stranger than it looks, drop it below. I read every one. Take care of yourselves. See you next time.